At the start of the 20th century, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk had one of the biggest jobs in history: build a modern nation out of the ruins of the Ottoman Empire. Now, that's a massive project, and it doesn't just take soldiers and politicians, it takes ideas. Big ones.
I mean, seriously, think about that. How do you even begin to build a country from scratch? How do you come up with a whole new identity, new laws, a new place in the world, especially when you're surrounded by ghosts of the past? Well, for Ataturk, a lot of the answers were hiding in a pretty private place, his personal library. And if we look closely at the books he read, the pages he marked up, we can almost become intellectual detectives. We can piece together the actual blueprint he used to build a Republic of Turkey. So, let's start digging for clues. Okay, so we're stepping into Ataturk's private study, and right away, you realize this isn't just a random collection of books meant to look impressive. No, this is a map of a mind hard at work. And just look at the sheer range here. It's incredible. On one hand, you've got this classic deep dive history of France, the story of revolution and the birth of a modern nation. And on the other, you have the memoirs of the American ambassador to the Ottoman Empire. That's a first-hand account of the exact world Ataturk was trying to change. This was definitely not casual reading. So here's the key thing to get. This library was a workshop. He was reading to figure out why old empires like the Ottomans were failing. That's the demolition part. And at the exact same time, he was hunting for ideas from history, from law, from philosophy, to build something new that would actually last. That's the construction. And this right here shows you how personal it was. This isn't just a book on European diplomatic history. It's his book. That's his signature. He was in a direct conversation with these authors, with these ideas, and they left a mark on him, just like he left his marks all over their pages. So where do you start with a project that big? Well, to figure out how to win, Ataturk first became an expert in losing. He pored over the histories of other great empires that had stumbled and fallen apart. Take this book, for example, a really detailed history of Russia. For him, this was a clear parallel. Just like the Ottomans, Russia was this huge, sprawling empire that struggled for centuries with its own weaknesses and with constant pressure from the outside. And he wasn't just skimming. He zeroed in on really specific moments. He was fascinated by passages like this one, talking about Russia being stuck under the Mongol yoke. He was studying what makes a state vulnerable to foreign domination, and more importantly, how it eventually fights back to reclaim its independence. You can totally see the strategy here, can't you? By studying the collapse of Russia, the slow, painful decline of the Byzantine Empire, he was basically creating a what-not-to-do list. He was learning to avoid things like overexpansion, internal conflicts, and losing control of your own economy. These were all lessons he'd apply directly to building a tough, resilient Turkey. But a nation isn't just about borders and money, right? It needs a soul. It needs a story. And Ataturk's reading shows he got this on a really deep level. Okay, let's go back to that history of France we saw earlier. Because buried inside this book is one of the most revealing clues in the whole library. It is a genuine aha moment. Here it is. On this page, he drew a heavy line right under a single sentence. Nous sommes les fils des Gaulois. We are the sons of the Gauls. Now, why that sentence? Because he saw it wasn't just a historical fact. It was the beating heart of a national myth. It was a story that connected all French people by giving them this shared ancient origin. And that was the light bulb moment. A nation doesn't just exist. It has to be imagined. It has to be built. It needs a powerful story, a shared past, even if it's partly myth, that can give millions of different people a common identity and a reason to work together for the future.
And his search for a story also meant studying leaders themselves. Here, in a biography of Attila the Hun, he marks this passage about a super tense diplomatic threat. You can see his bold XX in the margin. It shows that this moment of raw power and psychology really grabbed him. He wasn't just studying history, he was studying the nature of power itself.
But a great national story isn't enough to survive in the 20th century. Ataturk knew that for Turkey to be truly independent, it had to master the really complicated rules of the modern world. Things like international law, global finance, and geopolitics. Okay, this book looks kind of dry, but it is unbelievably important. It's a deep dive into something called the Ottoman capitulations. Now that might sound obscure to us, but for Ataturk, this was ground zero in the battle for his country's freedom. So what were they? Well, basically, they were these centuries-old deals that gave foreign powers huge legal and economic advantages on Ottoman land. Foreigners could avoid most local taxes and couldn't be tried in Ottoman courts. This system had been bleeding the empire dry for ages, and Ataturk knew it had to be abolished, period. And his reading was always intensely practical. This page isn't about ancient history, it's about who gets the oil after World War I. It specifically names the Turkish Petroleum Company and the resources in Mosul and Baghdad. He was studying the fine print of modern power politics, where controlling your resources is everything. So when you put all these clues together, the histories of fallen empires, the hunt for a national story, the crash course in modern law and economics, a really clear picture of the man starts to emerge. This was not the library of a collector just trying to look smart. Every book, every underline, every single note in the margin was part of an urgent, active mission. This was the intellectual engine room of the Turkish Republic. You know, the very scholars who first cataloged this library asked the perfect question: what influenced him? And after looking at these pages, we can actually answer that. He was influenced by the French Revolution, the fall of the Russian Tsars, the cold, hard rules of diplomacy, and the incredible power of a good story. In the end, this whole investigation into one man's library leaves us with a much bigger question. It shows that behind every big political decision, behind every nation-building project, there's a world of ideas. And maybe the best way to understand the future a leader is trying to create is to simply look at the past they chose to study.